Kellan lived where the river met the marsh, in a town called Tidefin. He was a mapmaker, careful and precise. His days were quiet, marked by the sound of paper folding and the smell of wet ink. He knew every bend of the river and every whisper of the tide. Order gave him peace. He believed the world stayed whole because someone measured it. On the morning his story began, the sky was low and silver. The market bustled, with traders shouting over the hum of the tide. Kellan's goal that day was simple: deliver 2 tide maps to the ferry captain before the water rose. Nothing more, but the world had other plans. As he tied the last bundle, a man stumbled into his stall. His clothes were torn, his chest streaked with black blood that shimmered like starlight. He fell hard, gripping Kellan's wrist. His voice was barely a whisper. "The heart of Sterne has been broken." The words made no sense, but in that moment, the air changed. A deep tremor rolled through the market. Bottles rattled, bells rang though no one had touched them. People stopped what they were doing and looked to the watch spire at the center of town. Its eternal blue light flickered once, then dimmed. Kellan dropped to his knees and tried to lift the stranger, calling for help. The healer's hut was only a few steps away, but when he reached it, the door hung open, the place deserted. A strange silence settled over Tidefin, broken only by the slow churn of the tide. By nightfall, word spread. The Heart of Sterne, the glowing crystal sealed in the watchspire's vault, had cracked. For centuries, that light kept the storms away, purified the rivers, and held the marshlands in balance. Without it, the weather would twist, the river folk would grow restless, and the old pacts between land and water would break. Kellan's map stall closed early that night. He couldn't sleep. From his window, he watched the watchspire's glow fade to a sickly gray. His instinct told him to ignore it. He was just a mapmaker, not a hero. But something inside him stirred, the same pull that made him chart unknown paths. The next morning, he climbed the watchspire stairs to see the damage for himself. The vault was shattered. Stone dust filled the air. Guards tried to keep people back, but curiosity won over fear. Lying among the rubble was a page burned at the edges. It carried a map and a single name written in the margin: Morrow of Sunder. He traced the mark with his thumb. He had seen it once before, carved into old war relics, the emblem of a forgotten conqueror whose armies once tried to remake the world. That night, as the town tried to seal the vault, the watchspire trembled again. The remaining shard of the heart flared with blinding light and fired a beam into the sky. A piece broke off and streaked across the horizon, crashing into the marsh with a sound that rolled for miles. The ground shook, then silence. Kellan's first instinct was to run toward it. He gathered a few volunteers and set out with lanterns, their boots sinking into the wet earth. The air was heavy with mist and iron. When they reached the crash site, they found a hole in the ground glowing blue-white. Beside it knelt a girl, trembling, covered in mud. Her name was Myra. She whispered about a voice that had called from the light, asking her a question: "Where is the heart?" Kellan helped her up and took her back to town. In her hand, she clutched a torn scrap of an old song, the kind mothers sang to children who lived near the watchspire. But along the edge, someone had drawn strange symbols, a cipher that matched the map from the burned page. When Kellan decoded it later that night, the pattern showed more than one impact. The shards of the heart had scattered far beyond the marsh. Someone had done this deliberately. At dawn, a horn sounded from the watchspire. The guards found something planted in the stone steps, a black banner with a crimson sigil burned into it, the Mark of Sunder. Carved into the post beside it were words that froze everyone in place. "We broke the heart to awaken the world." The ordinary world Kellan knew was gone. The simple goal of delivering a map was now meaningless. The heart's breaking had awakened an old force, and whether he liked it or not, the only man with the maps to follow its scattered pieces was him. That morning, as the sun turned the marsh blood red, Kellan understood the truth. His quiet life was over. He could stay and watch Tidefen rot, or he could go and find the shards before Sunder's followers used them to reshape the earth. He packed his maps, sealed his compass, and left Tidefen behind. The Heart of Sterne had been broken, and a mapmaker had become its only hope. The marsh spread out like a breathing thing. Mist curled over the water as Kellan began his journey south, toward the place where the first shard had fallen. Myra went with him, guiding through the tide paths that only locals knew. Each step felt heavier than the last. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, though no clouds hung in the sky. The ferrymen who once bought Kellan's maps gave them a boat, whispering, "The river remembers what you do." Kellan didn't know what that meant, but he would soon. Their first goal was simple: reach the broken reach before the next tide swallowed it. Retrieve the shard, bring it back, end this madness. For 2 days, they traveled through narrow channels, lined with reeds that hissed when touched. When they arrived, the marsh smelled of copper. The shard had buried itself in an ancient cairn of bones. The stone pulsed with blue light, humming softly like a heartbeat. Kellan reached out. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, a vision tore through him. A child's laughter, a bedroom he didn't recognize, then darkness. The shard had memories, and it wanted to be heard. Before he could recover, voices echoed outside. A band of scavengers appeared, the Watchwind. They were marsh nomads who traded relics for food and steel. Their leader, a woman with a wooden hand, looked at the Sunder sigil scratched onto Kellan's satchel and smiled. She offered him a deal: hand over the shard and she would let them live. Kellan refused. The woman marked his cheek with soot. She said then, "You belong to the marsh now," and disappeared into the mist. He carried the shard back to the boat, shaken but alive. Myra watched it glow faintly in the dark and whispered, "It's still calling." They traveled to the university city of Tindra to seek answers. The city rose from the marsh like a crown of stone towers, each lit with floating lamps. There, Kellan found Alwen, a scholar who studied the old wards. She told him the Heart of Sterne was not just a crystal. It was a contract, a living promise that kept the elements in harmony. When it cracked, everything it protected began to wake. Kellan listened as she spoke of Sunder, not as one man, but a lineage, a title passed down to those who believed the world should be broken and remade in their image. Moro of Sunder was only the latest, and if he gathered every shard, he could rewrite the laws of nature itself. Their goal changed. It was no longer about finding a single shard. It was about stopping a man who wanted to rebuild creation. To reach the next fragment, they followed the bleeding river. The river folk who lived along its banks distrusted landers, but Kellan helped a child free an eel spirit trapped in a net, earning their trust. They ferried him downstream, asking only one thing: if he found a shard in their waters, he would return it to them. Kellan agreed. He didn't yet understand the weight of a promise made to the river. During the crossing, the current whispered his name, and another, Sienna. The boatman went pale. That name, he said, belonged to a woman who once bargained with the sea and vanished. The river had not spoken it in 100 years. Their journey led them to an abandoned mill. Inside, gears stood frozen by rust. In the center of the floor, lodged in a broken wheel, glowed another shard. When Kellan touched it, music filled the air, a sad, beautiful sound like glass singing. But before he could lift it free, shadows moved. Sunder's soldiers, joined by Bone Watch mercenaries, closed in. Kellan grabbed the shard and ran. In the chaos, the shard spoke its name aloud, Threnody. A burst of sound flung his attackers back. He and Myra escaped into the woods, where the night air shimmered with echoes. He didn't know it yet, but speaking a Shard's name had power. It drew Sunder's attention, and somewhere beyond the marsh, a tower of black iron stirred as Sunder's lieutenant listened to the wind, hearing Kellan's voice carried through it. Weeks passed. Kellan and his companions, Myra and now Alwyn, reached the Riverkeeper's lodge. There they performed a ritual to bind the shard in salt and ink so it could no longer be called by its name. As the ritual ended, Kellan was forced to speak the shard's name aloud one last time to seal it. When he did, a vision flooded his mind. His younger brother Aaron, laughing on a riverbank years ago. The memory burned bright, then vanished. The shard had stolen it. In that moment, Kellan understood his own flaw. He had lived his life avoiding pain, mapping the world so he could control it. But some wounds couldn't be charted. To fix what was broken, he would have to risk himself. That was his midpoint, the moment he began to change. The peace didn't last. A messenger arrived that night carrying a piece of the Watchspire's banner. Sunder's men had captured the Kerry captain and the town's healer. If Kellan didn't surrender the shards, they would unleash a winter across the marsh. He couldn't allow that. He gathered allies, riverfolk, scholars, smugglers, and planned an infiltration of Sunder's citadel. The plan was bold and simple. Sneak in by night, free the captives, and destroy the kiln where Sunder was forging the shards together. They set sail on a tide sloop under the cover of fog. The citadel loomed on the horizon, a mountain of stone shaped like a clenched fist. Inside they found the captain and the healer trapped in cages of lightning. But Sunder was ready for them. His lieutenant stood waiting. The battle was brief and brutal. The captain was struck down. The healer was taken. Kellan escaped, but barely. His heart burned with guilt. They retreated to Tindra, searching for new allies. There they met Sienna, the woman of the river's whisper. She was older now, a mapmaker, like Kellan, but sharper, colder. She agreed to help not for gold, but for a promise. When the world was remade, she wanted to draw the first map of it. Kellan promised her the right. Together they intercepted a convoy carrying another shard. The ambush worked. For the first time they won a battle. But as Kellan bound the shard, he heard a child's voice, Aaron, his lost brother, calling to him from inside the crystal. The temptation nearly broke him. The shard promised he could bring Aaron back if he gave it his name. Kellan refused. He sealed it in salt. For a moment, he believed they had a chance. That belief shattered at dawn. Sunder's army struck faster than anyone expected. The Red Cartographer, the rogue who had once offered Kellan a secret path, had betrayed them. He had been selling their maps to both sides. The attack came like a storm. Fire and light tore through their camp. Alwyn's apprentice fell. The river folk scattered. Kellan fought to save what shards remained, but it was hopeless. Sunder's lieutenant raised a broken token, spoke a half-finished name, and the shards in Kellan's satchel began to sing. The bindings Alwyn made unraveled. The ledger burned. The captain's final breath echoed in Kellan's ears. In one instant, every plan collapsed. The hope they had built dissolved into smoke. Sunder's voice rolled across the marsh like thunder. You cannot bind what was made to break. That was the stunning surprise of Act 2, the total destruction of Kellan's plan. When the fire faded, Kellan was left with nothing but ash, 3 surviving allies, and the realization that Sunder now held the upper hand. The world seemed closer than ever to ruin, and the mapmaker who had once measured the world now stood in the ruins of his own design.
Night settled over a world torn open. The marsh that once shimmered with quiet light now breathed smoke and ruin. Kellan's army was gone. His maps were ash. The river no longer whispered, it moaned like something dying. He sat beside the wreck of their camp, staring into the black water. Myra was silent beside him. Alwen wept over a charred scrap of the ledger. Sienna stared into the fog, her face unreadable. Kellan's goal was simple now: survive. Find what was left, try again. They followed rumors of an old man living at the edge of the world, Maris, a keeper of the lore spring, where the first pacts of the heart were written. The journey took them through ghost towns and broken wetlands. The air stank of decay. Rain came and went without warning. Even the stars seemed dimmer. When they finally reached the lore spring, Maris waited beside a pool that shimmered with its own faint glow. He was older than any of them, his hair white as foam. He looked at Kellan and said, "You carry too many names that are not your own." Kellan showed him the remaining shards. Maris nodded slowly. He said, "The heart can be renewed, but only if someone speaks its original name and gives up the memory that anchors it." Kellan frowned. "A sacrifice?" "The dearest thing you have," Maris answered. "The heart binds with loss. It always has." The words sank deep. Kellan knew what that meant. He had already lost his brother once. But the shards still carried Aaron's voice, the only part of him left. To save the world, he would have to let that voice go forever. Maris taught him the counter name, a combination of 4 ancient words meaning river, bread, wound, and promise. It was a name meant to mend, but it required a heart willing to forget its own. Kellan listened, silent. Then he rose. His course was set. They gathered allies one last time, river folk, outcasts, and anyone still brave enough to fight. They marched toward the watchspire, where Sunder had built a great kiln from the shards he had stolen. Its light burned through the clouds like a false dawn. As they advanced, Kellan felt memory slipping. Little things, the sound of his brother's laugh, the way he used to skip stones. Each mile took another piece, but his resolve grew stronger. The emptier he felt, the clearer his purpose became. By the time they reached the watchspire, the battle had already begun. The marsh churned with lightning. Sunder's soldiers fought like shadows, silent and merciless. Kellan's army clashed with them on the flooded plain. He fought his way up the steps, blade in one hand, map in the other. The kiln roared like a living storm. Inside, Sunder stood among swirling shards, chanting names that bent the air around him. Kellan shouted over the noise, "You'll destroy everything!" Sunder turned, his face lit by blue flame. "No," he said, "I'll make it new. Perfect, the way it should have been." Kellan stepped closer. "Perfection is just another kind of death." He climbed the final step and faced him. The air crackled. The shards pulsed, each one singing a different note. Behind them, Alwen and Myra tried to pull the captives free, while Sienna searched for a way to shatter the kiln. Kellan felt the counter name burning in his mind. Maris's voice echoed, "To speak it, you must surrender what you love most." He closed his eyes and saw Aaron, his smile, the sunlight on his hair, the laughter by the river. Then one last time, his voice saying, "Don't forget me." Kellan spoke the counter name out loud. The sound tore through the storm like a blade. Every shard froze in place. The light twisted inward, then flared outward in a wave of blinding gold. For a heartbeat, time itself stopped. When the glow faded, Kellan was still standing, but something inside him was gone. He couldn't remember the face that had once guided him. The memory had dissolved into the heart itself, now whole again and shining like dawn. Sunder staggered backward, his spell broken. The kiln cracked. The shards melted into a single beam of light that pierced the clouds. Sunder tried to speak one last name, but the air swallowed his voice. His power was gone. The battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. The storm lifted. The river flowed clean again. The watchspire's light returned softer this time, like a living heartbeat instead of a weapon.
Kellan stood in the ruins, dazed. Myra approached him, eyes full of tears. "You did it," she whispered. He looked at her, confused. "Did what?" She said, "The world remembers again." He smiled faintly, though he didn't understand. Somewhere deep inside he felt a warmth he couldn't name, a hollow space that somehow didn't hurt anymore. Weeks later, Tidefen began to heal. The markets reopened, the river folk rebuilt their docks. The watchspire's light pulsed gently above the marsh, no longer blinding, but alive. Kellan reopened his stall by the water. He drew new maps, not of borders or tides, but of stories. He named each bend of the river after someone who had fought beside him: Myra, Alwen, Sienna, even the Fallen. One morning, a child came to his stall, pointing at an island on the map. He asked, "Who lived there?" Kellan paused. He didn't know why the question made him smile. He said, "Someone important." The wind carried a faint sound across the water. It might have been laughter. The Heart of Sterne pulsed once in the distance, as if remembering a promise made long ago. And the world moved forward, mended, imperfect, alive.